The rumble of engines echoed down the dusty stretch of highway as the biker convoy slowed near the edge of a small town. Sunlight glinted off chrome and helmets. Laughter and classic rock spilled from the lead rider's speaker. They were a rough-looking group, leather jackets, tattoos, steel eyes, but the kind that carried a quiet sense of brotherhood rather than menace. Jake "Bear" Lawson, the leader, signaled for a stop near an old gas station. The men killed their engines one by one, the sudden silence almost startling after the thunder of exhaust. They stretched, joked, and reached for bottled water. It was a normal break on a long ride, until a sound cut through the air that made everyone freeze. A child crying. At first it was faint, carried by the wind. Then, out of the sun's glare, a small figure appeared. A little girl, no more than 6, barefoot, her face streaked with tears and dirt. She was running, stumbling more than moving, clutching a torn stuffed rabbit in one hand. "Help! Please help!" she sobbed, her voice breaking. The bikers exchanged confused looks. Bear stepped forward immediately, his heavy boots crunching the gravel. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said gently, crouching to meet her. "What's wrong?" She looked up at him, eyes wide and terrified. They're hurting my mama," she gasped. "Please, they're beating my mama." The words hit like a gunshot. Bear's face hardened. He turned toward his men without another word. The easy banter was gone in an instant. Helmets went on, engines roared back to life. "Where?" he asked the girl over the noise. She pointed down the dirt road toward a row of run-down trailers behind a grove of trees, her little arm shaking. "Back there." "Please hurry!" Bear nodded, lifting her onto the back seat of his bike carefully. "Hold on tight, kiddo. We'll take care of it." The others followed, a dozen engines snarling like thunder rolling over the horizon. Dust kicked up behind them as they tore down the road toward the sound of screams that had no business echoing from a home. Whatever waited at the end of that road, someone was about to learn what happens when angels wear leather and ride steel. The dirt road twisted through a patch of trees, then opened onto a clearing littered with old cars, beer cans, and a sagging trailer that looked ready to collapse. The air was still, heavy with the sound of something that made every man's gut clench. A woman screaming. Bear killed the engine first. The others followed suit almost in sync, their bikes forming a half circle in front of the trailer like armored horses before a charge. He glanced back at the little girl, who was trembling in silence now, clutching her stuffed rabbit so tightly its ear was bent backward. "Stay right here, darling," Bear said softly, handing her his bandana. "Hold on to this, okay? We'll get your mama." She nodded, eyes wide. Then Bear straightened, the easy grin gone from his face. He rolled his shoulders once, cracked his knuckles, and strode up the creaking steps of the trailer. Tank and Rex followed on either side, silent and solid. Inside, a man's angry shouting was cut off when Bear kicked the door open so hard it slammed into the wall with a sharp crack. The smell of sweat, spilled beer, and fear filled the cramped space. 2 men froze mid-motion, one with a belt raised, the other holding a woman by the wrist. She was curled on the floor, face bruised, arms up to shield herself. "What the hell?" the man with the belt started. But Bear was already moving. His hand shot out, catching the man's wrist mid-swing. "You like hitting someone smaller than you?" Bear growled, his voice low, controlled, more dangerous than if he'd shouted. The man tried to jerk free, but Bear's grip was iron. A second later, Tank grabbed the other abuser and shoved him against the wall hard enough to rattle the picture frames. "Please, please. We didn't mean," one of them stammered. Rex snorted. "You didn't mean to, huh? She tripped into your fist, maybe?" Bear leaned in close, eyes cold. "Here's the thing," he said. "You mess with a woman in front of her kid, you're lower than roadkill. And where we come from?" He let the words hang as he twisted the man's arm behind his back, forcing him to the floor. "We clean up roadkill." Outside, the other bikers stood guard, forming a protective ring around the trailer. The little girl peeked from the steps, her small hands trembling. Minutes later, when the sheriff's car finally pulled up, Summoned by one of the bikers, the scene was silent, except for the sobbing of the woman being helped out by Rex. Her daughter ran to her, and they clung to each other like the world had just started again. Bear handed the sheriff a short explanation and a long stare. "You'll find those two fellas inside," he said simply. "They might have tripped a few times on their way to the floor." The officer glanced past him, saw the bruised men sitting dazed in the living room, and said nothing. As the sirens faded into the distance, Bear knelt by the girl again. "You did good, kiddo." "Real brave." She looked up at him through tears. Are you bad men?" Bear smiled faintly, handing her back his bandana. "Nah, sweetheart," he said. "We just look like it." When the road saints roared away minutes later, the sound of their bikes rolled across the fields like thunder, not of storm or fury this time, but of protection. Some heroes wear badges, others ride Harleys.